Did you put the key up?
Yes, I did.
Welcome to the source.
Everyone, Chris comes on and gives picks at the beginning of the show. Prop Fever, when you start talking, remember to check the levels because your voice always seems to come in quiet.
Hey, get the source.
Yo, what's up? Long time no see. For those of you that were just with us, did you put the restream up?
Yeah, I did. I have no clue why it's not.
All right, let me give a test message because there's baseball games on. There might not be a ton of people in here. Test. There we go. We're good. Chat's coming up. What's up, everybody? All right, so we're doing the football game tonight, and then we're going through 5 college football games. There's baseball on, and Thursday afternoon is a slow day on the sports betting YouTube space. But it's not slow when we're talking about NFL. NFL's officially back. Should be an awesome game to watch. As far as betting value, it kind of sucks. I don't have any bets down. I put a video out that I was leaning towards Chiefs in the under. Really don't feel strongly about any of it, to be honest. I'm kind of seeing if either of these guys can steer me onto a prop, maybe a same game parlay, something along those lines. But as far as what you could put underneath me, actually, Prop Beaver, can you type Baltimore team total under 22.5 for me?
Baltimore team total under 22.5. Okay.
Yeah, because I think if you put a gun to my head and say, Kyle, I need one bet that you're most confident in, I would say my strongest angle is the drop-off in production of the Ravens offense as far as in terms of offensive line, in terms of the run game. If it's going to be the same, everyone expects it to be better because of Derrick Henry, but I'm not sure about that. The yards above replacement, Gus Edwards was 20th in the NFL last year amongst qualified running backs. Derrick Henry was 17th. So as far as production, there wasn't a huge gap. Obviously, Derrick Henry is better than Gus Edwards. I'm not trying to say he isn't, but as far as the upgrade there, it's not as dramatic as you think. And that offensive line for the Ravens, I really have concerns. And Lamar Jackson has shown us, although he took big steps forward last year as a passer, he still worries me as far as taking dumb sacks. The Chiefs pass rush, Spagnuolo always seems to come up with new blitz packages every single week and always seems to outcoach his opponent. We saw it in the AFC Championship game. So I think the way I would go if I was going to place a bet here was Ravens team total under 46.5. You can get a 47 or just Chiefs money line. I don't think I would lay the 3, maybe a Chiefs minus 2.5. That's the way I would go, but I don't have any bets open. I am open to suggestions. So, Josh, what you got any props for us? Anything?
I do, but just to finish what you were saying, minus 2.5. I'm buying a half a point. I can still get it at minus 120. So I don't need it to be minus 110 or whatever at the 3 points there. So I am taking that. I'm super tired of hearing about Lamar Jackson's record against the spread when he's a dog. I'm pretty over hearing about that.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
Patrick Mahomes' record when a favorite of 3 points or less is just as good.
Right.
But go ahead.
No, we just look. I'm a believer in pass against the spread numbers. I'm not going to just poo-poo every single sort of good stat that, or at least reasonable stat with a good sample size. But I don't care in this situation that much. I care that it's Patrick Mahomes in a game that he really wants to win. I care that he has his weapons, and that this Chiefs defense is still nasty. I really hate that they lost L'Jarius Sneed. I will say that I'd feel so much better about this bet if Sneed was still on that team. But you got to let someone walk, and they wanted Chris Jones to stick around. So yeah, it is what it is. But at the same time, I still think this defense is top 10 against the pass. And we'll see if it got better against the run, but it couldn't be that much worse. And Chris Jones missed a few games last year as well. And then they sort of righted the ship against the run as well. So if you could stop this run, I do think that's going to be what they still have to hang their hat on, even though I agree with you that the O-line isn't quite the same. I do think it's a nice upgrade to Derrick Henry for sure. I'm going with the minus 2.5. And the other pick I'll give you, which is a prop, is another popular one, but it hasn't moved that much. And it's Justice Hill, the backup RB on the Ravens to get over 9.5 receiving yards. And this really comes down to he's the only dude doing that, right? I've already just blanked one. Mitchell is out once again, right? So they're not going to have any other backups for the Ravens running backs that are going to really work too worried about getting those receptions on third down or on passing downs. And I do think you want to leave Derrick Henry in there for the early downs, and then you have to pull him at this point, 31 years old, all the rest of it. Like you can't leave him out there all the time, the way that the Titans might have had to rely on him. Ravens don't have to rely on him as much. So you've got Justice Hill in a situation where last year when Keaton Mitchell was out, which was a good amount of games because he got that ACL tear, that was 10 games that he played without Mitchell, cleared this number in 8 of those 10. So when I saw that, I looked at it and I go, okay, the Chiefs are also a team that did have a propensity to give up receiving yards to the running back. They were 21st versus the running back position in terms of allowing receptions, receiving yards, both of those things, bottom 10. So feeling really good about that continuing for the Chiefs once again. Not the strongest linebacker core or coverage core for running backs. So Justice Hill is my favorite prop bet. I have a couple others, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Justice Hill over 9.5 receiving yards. Okay. And you lean towards the Chiefs side.
Yeah.
Prop Beaver, I know.
By the way, I bet the -2.5.
Oh, you actually bet the -2.5. Okay. Prop Beaver, I know you agree in terms of if we're talking about. So, yeah, Prop Beaver's on Zay Flowers receiving yards. He told us on the live show the other day. So, we'll go through that. And I know he agrees about the Ravens' offensive line as well.
Yeah, Ravens offensive line obviously nowhere near as good as it was last year, losing all those snaps. And then on top of that, I also think that the Chiefs offense may not come out firing like everybody thinks it does. I mean, obviously, everybody's talking about the addition of Xavier Worthy and what it could add in terms of firepower to this Chiefs offense. I think everybody's sleeping on the addition of Nate Wiggins to this Ravens secondary. That dude is a speedster out of Clemson, 100th percentile in 40-yard dash. So I think that he's the perfect guy to match up with Xavier Worthy and limit some of his looks. We're going to get to that in the underdog pick'em that we'll be talking about at the end of this episode. But yeah, so I think that he's going to be able to limit Xavier Worthy's explosiveness in this one. And then we got Rashee Rice, obviously, but Rashee Rice was already there last year. Travis Kelce, and then the Ravens defense. I know that they lost their coordinator, but I still think that they have a lot of the main pieces in place, and this is still obviously the first game of the season. The Chiefs' offense, for some reason, I feel tends to underperform at home compared to what it does on the road. I feel like they tend to, I don't know, underperform in comparison to their opponents in these spots. So I feel like they could almost come out a bit flat in the opener, coming off of the Super Bowl, a bit of that Super Bowl hangover. But obviously, my main play in this one is Zay Flowers under 57.5 receiving yards. And the main reason I really like that one is we're getting a bit of an inflated number here. He went off against them in that playoff matchup. 5 receptions, 115 yards, 8 targets. But as most of you guys know, Ravens completely abandoned the run. 6 running back carries. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. This was an offense that led the NFL in rush attempts last year. And with Derrick Henry now brought into the fold, I just think that would be absolutely ridiculous if they don't come in and immediately establish the run. On top of that, I also see the Chiefs establishing a run in this game because that is the clear weakness of this Baltimore Ravens defense, especially with Patrick Queen gone. So I kind of just see a heavy run game for both sides. That's why I lean the under in the game as well. So if we're getting rush attempts on both sides, that would limit pass attempts for Lamar Jackson. That would limit targets for Zay Flowers. And we already saw the fact that when Mark Andrews was healthy last year, Zay Flowers saw 1.5 targets less per game, 1 reception less per game, and Trent McDuffie's going to be shadowing this guy all day. I like Trent McDuffie shadowing him a lot more than L'Jarius Sneed, and L'Jarius Sneed was the one shadowing him in that Chiefs game, where Lamar Jackson threw the ball a ton. Don't expect that today. So, yeah, this is what I really like in this game.
What do you guys think about a first half under 23.5? Because remember, Mike McDonald's gone. And that's another question is, are we expecting the Ravens to run a lot of man coverage? I mean, you would think the DC that takes over has been with the team for a couple of years. So out of the gate, we should see a similar defense. I mean, it was the best defense in the NFL last year. Why would you, if it ain't broke, like why would you make dramatic changes to that? But with a new defensive coordinator, maybe the issues come as far in the form of halftime adjustments, and then maybe this game goes into half 9-7, and then the Chiefs come out, make some adjustments, and Andy Reid outcoaches or the new defensive coordinator in the second half. What do you think of that?
Wow, that's actually pretty. That's
cute.
That's next level stuff right there.
89,000 subscribers, not an accident, bro.
Can I just tell you that I think that you're overthinking it, though? I think you just go under for the game.
Oh,
I don't think
yeah.
there's anything
I
wrong
mean,
with it, yeah.
it's one game with not much betting value.
Yeah.
We got to talk about something.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Like,
love what you're saying. Love what you're saying. I was gonna come back anyway with the under for the game. If it's 9-7 at the half, yeah, I love the 47 under even more. I think the first half is the only way that we get screwed if you take an under for the game, because I quickly see the second half being one where it's like, look, I mean, you got to build up like in-game stamina is also kind of how I see it, right? Like I feel like week one isn't necessarily always full of barn burners as teams kind of try to figure it out. But, you know, at the same time, like I think the first half is just as good of a play as the total.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. You know what? Change my thing to under. That's what I gave out on YouTube. Under 46.5. Put under 47 and under 47. I want the extra half. So put up under 47. That's what I gave out on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, someone it's just 47. I don't think there's a half.
I don't think there's a half.
Yeah, I don't want to be stealing points on here. But and someone, I think it was S. Likes Travis Kelce's over. I mean, a primetime game, I could see that. They everyone media related wants to see Travis Kelce get the football in these primetime games. But matchup wise, last year it was man coverage. If your defensive runs man coverage, don't touch Kelce. Zone coverage, hammer Kelce. And if we see a similar defense on the Ravens this year, even with the new defensive coordinator, they're going to run a lot of man coverage, and it might not be Travis Kelce's spot. Generally, and this isn't like this isn't universal, but generally when you have a team that runs a lot of man coverage, you go with the athleticism, the guys that can beat their one-on-one coverage, and someone like Travis Kelce, who's on the aging side, a little bit of a disadvantage. But then the zone coverage, when it comes to making reads and being on the same page as your quarterback, you go with a guy like Keenan Allen who eats on zone coverage. Like Travis Kelce is a huge one.
I don't know how you could play Kelce with a zone. Like he's just going to run 15 yards down the field, turn around, and Mahomes is going to find him. It's the easiest play in football.
Right.
Is anybody playing soft zone against Travis Kelce with Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball? Makes no sense. Only thing I wanted to say too, though, is might be a little bit worried about the drama. There's a little drama with him.
Whoa. Tell us about it.
So Travis Kelce has to now defend the fact that an email was surfaced allegedly coming from his marketing agency that works for him, that there was an email that showed a contract that said that on the 28th of September 2024, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift would have to break up, and that here was the statement that they were going to put out on the 28th of September.
You're lying.
Did
this come from a reputable source, though?
Very much so. This is like 2 days ago, and like it's something he's legitimately responding to now. Yeah.
So I mean, people ask, were they really dating? I think they were really dating, but like I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I also don't think it's crazy that like if they broke up, they're like, listen, let's just hold on, like pretend we're still dating for another 6 months for both of our brands. I don't think that's that crazy.
That could be it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if I was Travis Kelce, I would 100% start dating Taylor Swift. I probably just how much money you really think he's gonna make off of that in general over the years.
Yeah, so. Right. Like, is there a form I could fill out, a line I could stand in? I'll get in on it. I could use the subs.
I don't think it's gonna matter to him though, and I don't like the receiving yards for him tonight just because of the like I'm following your logic there, Kyle, which is like I don't think you play zone against Kelce like that.
Yeah. So all right, I guess the under or Ravens team total under would be my favorite bet. Yeah. So we let's go. Oh, damn, we timed out perfectly. 4:30, running time for. Oh, let me send the link to Ben. Josh, we'll get you on soon, man. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, we got NBA starting up too. We're gonna need you.
We do, and if you need anything, I was gonna say too, if you need anything WNBA the rest of the season, currently up 20 units. So feeling pretty good about the.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sure, we'll get you on.
Cool.
All right, man.
All right, y'all. See you guys later.
Pleasure.
Just sent the link to Ben. Should have sent it to him before. We'll get started on some college football. Ooh, we're starting off with a good one. Andy's crooked ass green screen.
That boy a goofy.
Yeah, it seems like people in the comments knew about that. Did you know about that Travis Kelce thing, Rapier?
Yeah.
I don't care, but I'm surprised I didn't see it. But I'm not the type of person that would see news like that.
All right.
It's funny though.
Let's
Let's get L Taker on. You actually put it L Taker. And Andy's always low as hell on the camera.
Always be low.
It's instead of pointing his camera down, pinch the back of the camera and it points down.
More.
Right. Oh, Ben's here. Yeah, I forgot to send you the link before we got started. And I really... That's how we do it here, man. Unscheduled. So we're going through 5 games. And we're starting off with a good one. And I bet this one. The line finally got to a point where I'm like, okay. I got it at 10. I'm in at NC State plus 10 here. Let's get Prop Beaver. Let Prop Beaver get the poll up. For those of you that haven't been following this line, this opened at 5.5, I believe, in the offseason or whatever that was. Then after last week's games where Tennessee looked certainly more impressive than North Carolina State is. In fact, for the first half, it looked like NC State might take a loss to Western Carolina. They figured their shit out. They ended up winning comfortably. But no question, Tennessee looked a lot more impressive than North Carolina State did in the first week. Line reopens at 7. It hit 10 today, all the way up to 10. And in 2.5 points of that are in the last 24 hours. Hopefully there's not like an injury. Wait, Ben, is there any injuries that I'm missing on this?
Not that I know. I've talked about this game this morning, and I think it's what you said. You know, when you have 1 week of data, a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it too, kind of extrapolate that. NC State struggled a little. They were sleepwalking. Tennessee was up 50-0 before you could blink against Chattanooga, who's no good. But, you know, it is what it is. But fascinating game to start with.
Yeah. So I in my opinion, 10 is, when I first saw it, I was considering taking NC State at 7. When I first looked at it, I was like, I think I could get there with NC State plus 7. But at 10, I feel like I didn't have a choice. And maybe that's a negative that I felt like I didn't have a choice. But I did bet North Carolina State plus 10. Prop Beaver, if you want to give me on the screen. I'm on NC State plus 10. And the downside to this bet is North Carolina State's defensive front should struggle to stop the run here. Tennessee lost Jalen Wright, the star running back, right? He's on the Dolphins now. And the new kid, Sampson, I'm most likely a step down in production. Jalen Wright was a star. But that Tennessee offensive line is bringing back 3 starters. They've got 4 seniors on there. That should be one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. And NC State, although a program that usually recruits well in the defensive front, this is usually a very tough run defense, and it probably will be again this year. They got hit. 5 of their 7 starters on the defensive front gone from last year. So I expect Tennessee to be able to control the line of scrimmage offensively, get the run going. But I think we're going to see Nico throw a pick or 2 in this game because NC State does bring back some experience in the secondary. And look, this kid hyped through the ceiling, and from what we've seen and from what I know, maybe he's as good as advertised, this kid Nico. He's never thrown against a secondary like this. This will be his first real test as a passer. I think he might make a mistake or 2. So Tennessee should move the ball. This total's all the way up at 61.5, and they're 10-point favorites, which means their team totals at 35? They're expecting Tennessee to score points. I don't think that's crazy. I don't disagree with that. But I think we could see a Nico interception in there. But on the other side, Tennessee's defensive line is strong, and it's going to be a problem for NC State's offensive line. But the secondary is very inexperienced. The linebackers inexperienced. Not that they're not good. It's Tennessee, but a lot of it's through the portal. They lost a ton of production on the defense last year outside of the defensive line. The defensive line is still strong. So NC State, Grayson McCall, coming off a game where a wake-up call a little bit. I think they're going to come into this motivated. I think Grayson McCall is going to be able to throw the ball on Tennessee's secondary. So I think he can throw the ball enough to keep it close and cover the number. Ben, do you agree?
I think it's going to be, so I'll say this. If you wanted to bet Tennessee, you kind of missed it. I think you're kind of boxed out now where you're looking at more of a NC State or pass. You want to get cute and go like, I looked at some money line parlays this week, and Tennessee was a team that was in that bucket along with a couple others. But I think really the game comes down to what you just said. Tennessee has, to me, a glaring weakness. It's the secondary. If Grayson can exploit it, they've got a real shot. If he can't, I think Tennessee will open them up and win both line of scrimmages. And that's really what comes down to. Now, he's a gamer. I loved him at Coastal. I definitely think he'll be up to the challenge. It really, to me, does come down to that, though. They have to win that unit versus that unit, or they're going to be in trouble, because Tennessee plays at the speed of light, explosive, and your Nico looks amazing. But this is a different test. This is not an FCS school. He's going to have real challenges in this game. And that's what I'm so fascinated to see if Tennessee is for real.
Yeah. And I think it's a perfect spot to I see a lot of people, like you talked about when you first came on, that what happened last week shifted the market a little bit. But I kind of think, let's disregard the market shift. I kind of like what happened last week in terms of an NC State bet where Grayson McCall in North Carolina State maybe got a little bit motivated, and Nico, people are already like, oh, this dude, chalk him up for 2 Heisman trophies and the first overall pick in 2026. Like, they're like crowning this guy because he threw like 9 billion yards and 6 touchdowns. So I think on a motivation level, I kind of like what happened to NC State a little bit more in terms of covering this number. I think Andy's in agreement, or L Taker. I think L Taker's in agreement with me here.
Yeah, 100%. What you just said was exactly what I expected to happen. When I saw this line opened or when I looked at this line on Sunday, it was already starting to move up. And I kind of predicted to myself, I said, don't bet this until later in the week, because I know damn well people are going to overreact like hell to what Tennessee just did. And I give them credit. They were up a lot very quickly. That was Chattanooga, right? And I think it was the perfect mix, because NC State on Thursday had such a bad game and looked so terrible against West Carolina that I was kind of like, don't bet this yet, because people are going to be betting on Tennessee no matter what. They're going to be in money line parlays, like he said, and really people are just going to completely overreact. I, going into the season, was very high on NC State. I'm not super high on Tennessee. I think Tennessee is one of the better teams in the SEC, but like not to the point where I'm like completely all over them. So I think that this was a perfect situation where I knew that everybody was going to overreact to week 1. Grayson McCall has to play better. I mean, he got off to a rough start against West Carolina. Can't do that against Tennessee. I don't think he will. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. So I think he'll be perfectly fine, and I think that they'll win that battle, like you said, Ben, and I think it'll be a pretty good one here for NC State. I actually bet this at 9.5. So
and keep in mind, we've seen one game, and they were both tune-up games against bad teams. This line opened up at 5.5. It's pretty much consensus 10 now. 4.5 points is an extreme reaction from week 1 game, especially a relatively unimportant game. So that's a crazy reaction. And like I said, I was leaning NC State at the 7, but at that number, I was probably like, When it hit 10, I was like, I can't not. I mean, 3 points, a 3-point move over 2 key numbers, I had to. So I'm just playing the number here, taking NC State plus 10. This isn't like a fade of Tennessee or anything like that. It's just more playing the current state of the market where it's at. All right. So, Ben, you're passing on this game, you said?
Yeah, so honestly, like I said, I came into it with the mindset of, let me see where I can get Tennessee, and I completely whiffed on that. I may roll them into a moneyline parlay, but I'm priced out, because at this point, I'm with you guys. At 10, I'm not back in Tennessee. No way.
Yeah, and it's almost like a psychological thing where it's like, even if you like Tennessee at 10, it's in your head like, but I could have had it at 7.
What am I doing?
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. Is Coach Prime up next? Oh, yeah. Colorado, Nebraska. All right. So I sniped a number in this one. I am holding Nebraska at 6.5. That being said, I'd still probably play it at 7.5. But let me preface it by saying, like, I don't know if everyone here has watched the show before. I'm not a Colorado hater or anything like that. I know there's a lot of that out there. That's not me. I'm not anti-Colorado. Shedeur Sanders is cool. Whatever. I bet Colorado plenty of times. So I feel like you have to preface that because there are people blindly fading them for a year and a half now. That's not me. But this matchup is terrible. Do either of you guys want to talk first? I mean, I can go if you guys want me to. But Ben, what do you think about this one? This is the game you mentioned in the DM. So do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. Yeah. We are aligned. First bet of the week for me was actually, again, I keep saying moneyline parlays, which is rare for me, but I did roll Nebraska into some of those. I like this spot. I like it you can still find some 7s. You have to lay a little extra juice, but I'm very content with that. Colorado, yes, they survived in North Dakota State. It's not a pushover, but that was in Boulder. Now you're going up there. I like the true freshman. I like what Nebraska did. Yes, UTEP is UTEP, all of that. Nebraska's going to exploit what is serious deficiencies on Colorado. I'm also not a Colorado hater, by the way. I like Travis Hunter. I like what they do. Their defense is atrocious. They lost another safety. I really worry about Colorado. They're on their way. Deion's doing some cool things. This is not the spot. I'm with you. I think Nebraska looks actually pretty impressive and wins this pretty decisively, to be honest.
Prop Beaver, can you move me down and Andy up so our heads aren't so crazy on the line? But yeah, I agree. And so the graphic beneath us says Nebraska -7.5. But like Ben said, you can find sevens out there. It's not like you have to search very hard either. I'd say the books are pretty split on this one, at least last I looked. So yeah, I'm on Nebraska, like I said, and specifically, so I mean, there's a few reasons why, but I think the number one reason that like just pushed me over to place the bet was we've seen a lot of awesome things from Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and the playmakers on this Colorado offense. No question, talent-wise, you can throw them in there with teams in the SEC as far as the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. No question. We've seen them do a lot of awesome things, but one thing we have not seen them do is go on the road and score points against a tough defense. And I looked last year, they played 3 road games against good defenses. At Oregon, they scored 6 points. At UCLA, they scored 16, I believe, or 17. No, 16. And at Utah, they scored 17. Now, Utah, Shedeur Sanders didn't play in the Utah game. So we can put that one down. That can't exclude it. The quarterback didn't even play. But those other 2, the only 2 times we've seen this Colorado team go on the road against a good defense, they scored 6 points and 16 points. This Nebraska defense, I think, is as good as Oregon's defense was last. This is going to be, in my opinion, top 10, top 15 defense. This was a borderline top 25 defense last year. They brought back 7 of their top 8 defensive linemen. They brought back 4 of their top 6 linebackers. This defense is really good. And yeah, you can make an argument that even with Nebraska's defense being what it is, which is going to be good this year, they still don't have the pieces in the secondary to cover Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr., Of course, I'll give you that. Even with a top 15 defense, they still might not have the corners to cover those 2 guys. But the discrepancy between Colorado's offensive line and Nebraska's defensive front, it's large. It's huge. The pass rush is coming. Shedeur Sanders is going to be in some trouble here as far as the Nebraska edge rushers coming. But even if you think Shedeur Sanders is going to make plays on the road in Nebraska, because I don't think that's crazy. I mean, we haven't seen him do it on the road against a tough defense yet, but let's say he does. On what planet is Colorado's defensive front 7 stopping this Nebraska offense? I mean, Nebraska's got a big physical offensive line. They're all back from last year. They got Dylan Raiola, who can run and throw it, by the way. They've got 3 running backs. 2 of Nebraska, they had 3 running backs that had 50-plus rushing yards last week. 2 of them, one's 6'2", 225. The other one's 6'1", 215. They got a couple of Ford F-150s in the backfield and a big physical offensive line. I mean, Dylan Raiola is supposed to be the next Patrick Mahomes, and we just watched Colorado struggle with Cam Miller on North Dakota State. And no disrespect to Cam Miller, that's a very good FCS team. Wasn't taking shots at him at all, but he's not Dylan Raiola type of talent. So I mean, even if you think Shedeur Sanders and those receivers for Colorado can make plays on the road in Nebraska, which is a big if, because we haven't seen them do it, I don't see on any point. I mean, on paper, Nebraska should be ripping 8 yards a carry. So, yeah, I laid it. I'm on Nebraska -6.5. I'd still play it at 7.
100% agree. I think I said it a little too much last time. Going into the game against North Dakota State, felt like North Dakota State would have win the battle in the trenches. I have no problem saying that Nebraska definitely will. Thought Colorado looked somewhat improved. Their offensive line looked improved in the second half last game. Shedeur wasn't necessarily running for his life as much as he was in the first half. That was North Dakota State. These Nebraska guys are all going to be going to the NFL. Matt Rule loves this defense, and his defenses usually do get after the quarterback. So I think there's going to be pressure there on Shedeur. I know these receivers are good, and I think these receivers are going to be towards the top of the country, both of them, Hunter and Horn. But I think this is just a bad spot for him on the road. Like he said, they haven't been necessarily very good on the road. Nebraska's just such a strong defense. Last year, Nebraska might have won 8 or 9 games had they had just a competent quarterback situation. This game last year, Jeff Sims was awful. He was awful last year overall. And now you've got Raiola, who looked really good in his first game. Now it's his second game against a defense he knows he can throw on, right? Everybody probably will be able to throw on this defense this year. So I think it's just a perfect spot for Nebraska. I think this is more like a 10 to 12 point difference in terms of talent. I think Nebraska is far more talented on the whole roster. Obviously, Colorado's very top heavy, but I think Nebraska from top to bottom is very talented and toward the top of the Big Ten in terms of being a good defense this year.
All right. We're in agreement across the board here. What do we got next, Pop Beaver? I want the South Florida game. Is that coming up? Oh, no, it's the Boise. Oh, man. Maybe Ben has something for us here because, in my opinion, this is like throwing darts in the dark based on what we saw from these two programs last week. By the way, in case you're just listening, we're talking about Boise State on the road at Oregon. And this whole game, in terms of what happened last week and what we're looking at now, makes no sense to me. Any aspect of it. I thought Boise State was going to have a good defense this year. They brought back all 11 starters. What the hell? I thought they were having a good defense this year. They got cooked by a Georgia Southern offense that I didn't even think. Georgia Southern didn't even start Dexter Williams. Did you see that? They didn't even start. They came out with a different quarterback. Cooked Boise State's defense. Now, what my football betting brain tells me to do is everyone's now thinking Boise State's defense sucks and they're overrated. This is and they're going to be undervalued. This will be the time to make a play on them. They got beat so bad that I don't even like. It's got me thinking like, okay, maybe I'm just dead wrong. Maybe this Boise State defense can't function without Kane Ione at defense coordinator. Because remember, the DC's gone. He's with Jeff Choate at Nevada now. The DC that built this Boise State defense up is gone. So maybe even though they brought back all the starters, it doesn't matter without the defensive coordinator. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But Boise State brings back a ton of defensive starters and got cooked by Georgia Southern. So was that a look-ahead spot to the Oregon game? Will those starters bounce back now? But they're on the road in Oregon. So your guess is as good as mine, folks. I'm wondering if these guys have anything to... I don't even know how to begin to make a wager here. Either you guys?
Not going to get much from me. The only thing I'll say is I think there is some analogy to be made to like the NC State mentality. Boise State did not look good, and this line is moving and moving. Now it's taking resistance at 3 straight touchdowns. We're up to 21. That's a lot of points.
21 now?
Like, I'm not saying that I'm a big Boise State guy. I think that Oregon was clearly playing with their food against Idaho. Gabriel was not as sharp as he needed to be, and it didn't matter. They will be better. They had turnover on downs. They were screwing things up. They could have had a lot more points in that game. But I do think a lot of people, me included, was like, wow, I thought Boise might be that team that's the playoff contender. I guess they're just not, and we're just writing them off after one game. If this pushes to 21 and a half, I don't want it to because I don't want to deal with this, but I might have to really look to Boise State because they still, you mentioned, they return a ton of production, and I'm not saying they're going to go into Eugene and come out with a win, but can they keep it respectable? I didn't think that was that far-fetched just like a week ago.
Yeah, and that I was thinking exact same when you said, because when I looked earlier it was 20, and when you said it's at 21 now, my first thought was, should I go hit this? Like, I'm thinking the same way. You could put Boise State plus the points up for me, Prop Beaver. Disclaimer: I have not bet this, and I don't want to. Ben actually, the way he phrased it is exactly how I feel. If it's now at 21. This Boise State defense brought everyone back, and I expected it to be good this year. So what do we know about betting football? If you've been betting football for multiple years, you know the week 2 overreaction shit is real. And if you had an inkling that, let's just use me as an example, I had an inkling that Boise State's defense was going to be strong this year. One game shouldn't completely trash it. It's just the fact that that one game was so disgustingly embarrassing that it's got me rethinking everything. It's got me just shoving everything off my desk when it comes to Boise State. So this is a side I want to be on. Andy, by the way, Ben, you said a lot of people thought Boise State might have been the group of 5 playoff sleeper. Andy's one of them. He's big on this team.
There you go.
Yeah, I had two teams that I considered betting, and they were the team that got left out. I wound up betting on South Florida to make the playoffs, but yeah, I felt the Oregon score was very deceiving, like Ben said. They should have had a lot more points than they did. Clearly, they were not in the right mindset to play that game. They thought they would walk all over Idaho, and Idaho's been a kind of a pesky team for teams in the past, and they're also one of the better FCS teams now. But somebody commented, Genty ran for 300 yards. How could that have been a bad day for Boise State? They gave up 45 points to Georgia Southern, man. And respect to Georgia Southern, I know it was a home game for Georgia Southern. That offense should not be scoring 45 points on anybody, let alone probably the best team in the Mountain West. And Ashton Genty shouldn't have to run for 300 yards for you to beat, to not even cover against Georgia Southern. So great game from Genty, and I think he in a perfect world he could be a Heisman candidate if they win enough games. But if you need Genty to run for 300 yards, he's not going to run for 300 yards against Oregon, man. At Oregon, you think he's running for that much? I don't think there's a chance. I think he's good for 2 touchdowns, but maybe 100 yards around that. That's not even close to what they need to score that many points to keep up with Oregon. If this defense is going to be this bad, I wasn't overly high on the defense. I was high on the offense. The quarterback situation concerns me still. Maddox Madsen going to Eugene terrifies me. I think we could see Malachi Nelson halfway through this game if it gets ugly enough. I'd actually lean Oregon, unfortunately, because I think Oregon's not going to.
So you bailed. You're doing the overreacting thing. You were the one.
Well, but this isn't overreacting because Oregon's going to come to play this week. I mean, there's no way they don't. They nearly got up. Idaho had a chance to win that game late in the game in the fourth quarter in Eugene. That's not going to happen again. They're coming to play. Dan Lanning's going to have them ready to play. So it's not necessarily me overreacting to Boise State because I still think it's a really good roster, and against the Mountain West will be fine. But this is a woken up Oregon team, and we saw what a woke up Oregon team looked like against Colorado last year. They put boots to asses pretty quickly in that one, and I think they could do it again here. This is just purely, I think Oregon's going to be so focused to win this game by a lot.
All right, I don't want to talk about this game anymore because I don't think I'm going to bet it. Let's go on to the next one. And the one I want to talk about is actually the last one. So we have this one and one more. Andy thinks South Florida plus 30.5 is a good bet here. He's been big on South Florida all off season, so this isn't new. He likes this team. I'm just going to listen.
Yeah, I'll start. I think Alabama's going to score a lot of points, and I think South Florida's going to get a couple of touchdowns to keep it close enough. If you want to look at an over in this one, I don't mind. I know the number's high, but I think South Florida's defense could get gashed a little bit late in this one. I think the number's just way too high for me to take Alabama. I said the same thing last week, and Alabama put up 60 or whatever against Western Kentucky, but South Florida's much better than Western Kentucky. This offense brought back 10 of 11 starters. Their quarterback's a star. Their running back's a star. All over, the South Florida offense is great, so I don't think that they're going to be easy for Alabama to shut down. And they improved their defense enough. They're all kind of new transfers in the secondary, but they were high-level transfers, so I think they're a bit better. So I think the game will be closer, but I think it's going to be very high scoring. I think it's going to be in the 70s in terms of scoring, which is the complete opposite of what happened last year when these teams played. Granted, Jalen Milroe looked awful in that game, or got benched in that game, if I remember correctly. That was Ty Simpson or something.
He didn't even start that game.
Yeah, he was the one that he got benched there. So Alabama played around in this game last year. Maybe they don't this time, but I just think this is a better South Florida team. Everybody's a year older. They have expectations now. They looked really good in their first one. Granted, it was against Bethune-Cookman. But I'm high on this South Florida team. I have them winning the AAC and making the playoffs. So I think they're competitive in this one, but I think it's just going to be so high scoring. So you can give me the plus 30.5, and I'll also probably be on the over.
I'm good on that. Put up Alabama for me. I'm not going to bet it, though, so I won't even waste your guys' time talking about it. I think Jalen Milroe is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and even though Saban's gone, I still think this team's pretty loaded. And in Tuscaloosa, especially a team that actually gave him some problems last year, I think they beat the hell out of him personally. I'm not laying 30.5, though. Ben?
Talking about this game this morning, so I'm a big South Florida guy. I actually, one of the few, it was a weird week one for me, but I got really good closing line value on that. I'm ashamed to say it. I watched that Bethune-Cookman game because I bet South Florida in that game. And they looked, I mean, of course they looked good, but this is a team that's doing it the right way. I like their coach. Second year now, he's building a program. You mentioned their quarterback is no joke. They'll probably be outmatched in this game, of course, when you're 4.5 touchdown underdog. But South Florida is a pesky team. So I'm kind of hedging my bet in the sense I am macro buying this team for sure. I don't know if I want to mess around. I'm actually a little freaked out that they struggled, Alabama, that is, against this exact team, because there's no way they're going to overlook them 2 years in a row. And I actually worry about that. But South Florida is a team to keep an eye on. I do have some preseason futures on them as well, not to make the playoff, but just in that conference in general. I like this team a lot.
Hey, you and Andy both big on this South.
Yeah, I have
Florida
them to win
team.
the AAC and to make the playoffs.
They're doing things.
Was Jerry Bohannon playing quarterback in this game for South Florida last year? Was it Jerry Bohannon? He was there last year, right?
I thought Brown played.
No, I'm asking, but Jerry Bohannon
I
was on the roster.
Brown played. I mean, this game was the complete opposite of what I said it's going to be. It was like a 7-0 game at halftime, or like 3-0 game at halftime. It was an awful football game last year.
All right, let's get to the last one where me and Andy disagree, and Ben's going to be the tiebreaker here. This is a bad game, but a great game at the same time. Virginia Wake Forest. Okay, so Prop Beaver, before you put the poll up, Andy's on Virginia. I think it's the wrong side, but Andy actually bet it and I didn't. So he actually put his stake. He had some stake in the game. I don't yet. It's not that I don't think. I agree. Virginia's the better team here. Obviously, the line shows that they're only catching 1.5 on the road, which means at home they'd probably be laying a field goal. So it's not that I disagree that Virginia's the better team. I just really don't like this matchup on the road in Wake Forest, a team that they brought back their entire defensive front seven. I think like 6 of the top 7 defensive linemen and most of the defensive linemen, most of their linebackers. They have a very experienced defensive front, and I don't trust. Andy likes Calandria. He made some plays last year, made some plays last week. I don't trust Calandria to go on the road and throw for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns and win a road conference game. I don't. I think he'll screw it up some way. So it's not that I don't think Virginia is the better team. They are. I just really don't like the matchup because I think Wake Forest is with the experienced defensive front. If this game was in Virginia, I would take UVA by a touchdown. I swear. I just in Wake, I don't think the run game's going to be there for Virginia. Now, offensively for Wake, I get it. They're not very strong. Big Hank's at quarterback. we're big Hank guys. Say what you want about Hank Bachmeier. He is experienced. We bet some of his games with Sonny Cumbie and Louisiana Tech last year. Not the greatest. And Virginia's defense brings back a lot of production. So it's by no means am I sitting here saying, Wake's going to move the ball up and down on Virginia. No, not at all. Both offenses should struggle, but at close to a pick 'em, I like the home team with the experienced defensive front. Now, if you're wondering, based on what I just said, you might be thinking, well, Kyle, why not just take the under? And that makes sense. I do think both offenses are going to struggle. The reason that I haven't bet the under and I don't have a bet on this game is both of these coaches ran extremely fast-paced. Well, not extremely. UVA runs an extremely fast-paced football game, and Wake Forest was running some decent pace last year as well. I think they were like 17th in the country and 49th in the country. So, I mean, if college football, you get 2 teams that are down to push the pace, defense could be playing fine. Final score could still be 38-35 just because each team's going to get 90 possessions. So the pace scares me off taking the under, but that's the kind of game I'm seeing. I think both offenses are going to struggle. I think Calandria might throw a pick or 2, and I think the home team would be the side to be on based on that fact, even though I'm admitting Virginia's the better team. Ben, can you break the tie?
I'll break the tie. It's definitely
do you want to wait? Should we let Andy make his case first, and then that probably makes sense?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a cover with Virginia. Last week I had a minus 19.5 against Richmond. They barely squeaked that one out, but they did. And I think this simply just comes down to I don't think the Wake Forest secondary is going to be able to stop this pass attack. I think Calandria is better. He can move as well, which helps when you have a bad O-line. And also, I know it was Richmond, but I don't think Wake Forest is very good at, obviously, they're not very good in the secondary. Not going to be able to stop some of these passes. Listen, this is a list of how deep they were throwing the ball. And I know it was against Richmond, but if they're able to complete the deep ball, it's gonna be very tough to beat. They completed a 41-yard pass, a 52-yard pass, a 35-yard pass, a 57-yard pass. They had one of the best returning receivers in the ACC, Malachi Fields. He had 100 yards, 20 yards a catch, and a touchdown. Just overall, I think there's way too much here offensively for Virginia. I think that this team's going to be throwing on a lot of ACC defenses, and now they're playing the worst. They're playing one of the worst secondaries in the ACC, so I think young quarterback who can move to protect himself from a bad O-line, because they do have a bad O-line. It just overall, I think there's just way too much offense. Wake Forest can't keep up with that. Hank Bachmeier is not. They got off to a slow start against NCA&T, and then they regrouped, and they did a good job to win that game by a good enough number. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Virginia. You can't start slow against an offense that's going to score points. Virginia's going to score a lot of points this year. So just overall, I think their offense is just way too much for Wake Forest.
All right, Ben, there's a gun to your head, and you're forced to break the tie.
Going with Virginia. Who's? Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's some bias in the sense I actually caught some of that North Carolina A&T game. And I was like, what is going on here with their stupid mesh? They play so fast and they do that little mesh huddle thing with the handoff. I don't like that. The thing that I took away, and again, when you're playing FCS schools, both of them did. Richmond, that game, first of all, I thought Virginia actually looked pretty good. Musket was the one that made the mistake. Colin Drea actually was really clean in that game. And I think they've kind of settled that this is, for better or worse, he goes as this team goes, and this team goes as he goes. So now, can he exploit? It's kind of going all the way back to the first game we talked about, Grayson against Tennessee secondary. They better win this advantage because they have to get to Wake secondary. If they don't, it's going to be a big problem. But I look at Virginia. I do think they can straight outscore him here. And I look at Colin Drea. I think he kind of proved enough. Now, Richmond is not the same opponent, but I'm not sold on Wake. I wish it wasn't in Winston-Salem. If it was in Charlottesville, obviously the line would be different. I think we all know that, but I'm going to ride with Virginia. I think that they're building a little bit, and I'm not on Wake Forest just in life this year. Not a fan of that team.
I'm on my own. Although the viewers are pretty split on this one, 38%, 45%. So this thing's pretty split. I'm not alone on Wake Forest. I don't know. I might end up betting this. All right. So yeah, that's it. So we'll be back tomorrow, same time. Ben,
underdogs, Chief.
Oh, let's throw the underdog pick him up there.
This guy, always forgetting. All right, so let's.
While Prop Beaver's getting it up, Ben, do you want to tell the people where they can find your stuff?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. This was a blast. But you can always find me over on Odd Chopper. I love college football, dropping a lot of content over there, and it's just such a fun time of the year. So happy to talk a little college football with you guys.
Yeah, and then for those of you who probably know Lindy comes on for the MLB show. He works with Lindy. They're all part of the same group, Odd Shopper. They're all in the same YouTube channel, Odd Shopper. So I tagged him in the tweet. So if you follow me on Twitter, give him a click as well. They post content all the time on the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. All right, Prop Beaver, what did you cook up for us, man? All right, let me see.
So this is the Monday Night Football one. Pretty much talked about the Zay Flowers one already, so don't really need to go deeper into that one. Xavier Worthy, lower than 3.5 receptions. I've preached it already. Nate Wiggins, the speedster, he's going to shut Xavier Worthy down. All off season, I've heard about Xavier Worthy. Nate Wiggins, the speedster, he's coming. And then Nelson Aguilar. He was good against man coverage last year. I think he's the key here to Lamar Jackson having a bit of success against this man coverage heavy Chiefs defense. So higher than 16.5 receiving yards, very doable. That is our 3 pick to win 6 times. And then Andy has an underdog as well.
Wow, didn't want me to talk. Yeah, I made a new one and I decided to not be an asshole. I correlated them to today's games that we talked about. So Colin Drea, I just said it. I think he's going to throw all over Wake. So over, I can't see it from here, but I believe it's like 263 or something like that. Yeah, he should throw all over this team, have 300 plus in that game. And then Jalen Milroe over 309 combined rush and pass yards. I said it. I think that's going to be a crazy high scoring game. And with how he looked against Western Kentucky, I have a hard time believing that he's not going to be able to replicate that and just either running or throwing the football. He's going to be crazy. So yeah, correlated him to today.
All right. What's the free square? Travis Kelce still. Oh, duh, it's Thursday today.
Yeah.
So Travis Kelce over, what is it, a half reception, higher than a half reception, half yard? What is it?
It's a half yard.
Half yard. All you need is half yard. So that's the free square If you're located in one of these states for Underdog Fantasy, one of the states highlighted in yellow, the promo code is BET. Thanks, everyone.